Hi, Grandma here. Today I'm going to show you my new program I call Cityscape. And Cityscape is more thoroughly described on our blog, which is MakeCode. In the blog post associated with Cityscapes, there are lots of pictures of really interesting cityscapes of a wide variety that we have created. There's also a pretty thorough description of the code, and you can also download the MakeCode for Minecraft code from our blog. Okay, now this was a cityscape that I generated, and I'm going to show you how I did that. I went to the chat command and I typed city. How hard is that? And what city does is it generates the default, from the default parameters, it generates a random city. Now let me show you something about this city. First, if you notice the clear glass marker towards the center bottom of the screen, that is the origin. That was where the first building was placed. And from that building, the program moves a random distance on which you put limits to where the next building is placed. And from the next building, it moves a random distance to where the next building is placed, and so on. What does that sound like? Well, it sounds like a random walk. And where instead of placing whatever you place for steps, it places a building at the new random position. Now also, each building that is placed, or built, constructed, the program chooses a random block from the blocks which you have supplied, like a pallet. It also chooses a random height, width, and depth, where depth means the how far back, in the how far back sense, not how deep. Okay, now notice that this building seems to be more built towards the north. But the next time we run this building, it might be built more towards the east because it's a random walk, effectively. Now, this is what I call my jewel block array. So from this block array, we create cities that are kind of like they're made out of jewels. So here's another one. And we're using the same blocks, but they're going to end up placed very differently, and the city will look quite different. And notice this one is more towards the east. And notice that there is a rectangle placed under the city when the program completes, and the rectangle is calculated by the maximum and minimum distances in the north, south, east, west coordinates, and I will explain more about that later. Now that's kind of a pretty city. So one view of a city that I like is when you look straight down on it. And of course you have this choice. And in fact, there's quite a number of views that we have, and so I've written a little chat function named, guess what, view, and this will allow us to see the city from lots of different angles. Oh, that one's nice. And each of the angles or vantage points may be quite different. So it moves through all possible positions around the rectangle. Well, not all possible, but it moves through 8 positions around the rectangle to let you see the city from different points of view. Now you might do this again and say you decide you want to capture the image of the city from this view. Well, you would run it again, watching for the view, and then you would use chat command S to stop the program, the movement of the program on that view. Nice. Oh, I like that one. Okay. Okay, you get the idea. And now the very last place you get to view the city is right from the center of the city. So this is in the center, the midpoint of both dimensions. Okay. Now, what if I wanted to use different, I also have options of the number of buildings and which block array is used. So let's just try one that would look really different. So we're going to try city. We're going to continue to use the default city, which includes the default parameters include everything like width, limits on width, height, and so on. And we're going to make 100 buildings, and we're going to use block array 3. I wonder what that one is. Well, we're about to find out. Okay, that's the reddish block array. It has things that are red, orange. I've forgotten if I threw in a little pink. Maybe I decided pink was a little much. It also has dynamite. So if you're in the mood to blow up a city, remember this is Minecraft, we are just pretending, we never blow up a real city. If you want to blow up your Minecraft city, you have all the dynamite you could ever want. And conveniently, notice the program, if it has dynamite in the construction, it gives you some flint and steel so that you're all ready to go over here and let's just do it because we can make another one really easy. Now, will it blow up the whole city, or will it not have enough dynamite in the city to get the whole thing? Okay, that's fun. Nothing like blowing up a city in the morning, a Minecraft city. Nearly got the whole thing. Okay, let's do another one. How about city? We'll use default again. We're going to use, let's just make one building. And let's use block array 2. Block array 2 is the black array, as I recall. Where did it go? Well, that's weird. City. Let's just do the exact same thing again. 0, 1, 2. There it is. Don't know what happened the other time. I actually haven't had that happen before. So let's hope it's anomalous. Now in this particular one, now notice that origin is marked as the northwest corner of the building. Okay, so I don't like to look at the origin in such a beautiful little simple drawing, so I'm going to type no, and it'll erase that little marker. No means no origin. Okay, let's see what else we can do here. Let's type, let's use the second. If we put a 1 there, it means use the other set of parameters. Well, let's just see what those are. Here they come. Okay, that is the black array, the one that we just used with default. Oh, that's cool. It has cyan foundations. Ooh, I like that. Okay, nice. Okay, let's make one that's just really super colorful. We'll do view 1, default number of buildings, and let's go to 4. And the array 4 means use all 3 of the above arrays and mix them together. So now we're going to do a new building. Oh, I typed view again. Can you believe I did that? I'll just stop it like that. That's pretty nice. Okay, let's type city. And it'll be, we'll use this one, default number of buildings, and we'll use array 4. There it comes. Now it's using the broadest set of blocks that I have defined because it's mixed all 3 of the arrays together. And I'll show you what all that means in just a minute. Oh, I like that one. Now, this program is addictive because, in fact, I just can't stop clipping these things. Now, I wish I had time to stop and clip this one because I think it's particularly gorgeous. But let's go look at the program to learn a little bit more about what you can parameterize here. First, there are the block arrays. So there are 3 of them. That the jewel array is it's glass blocks that look kind of like jewels. Then there's what I call the black array, which lets you give something that's very conservative looking. And then there's the red array, which I kind of think of as TNT array, in case I'm going to blow something up. And then so that's arrays 1, 2, 3, and 4 means mix all 3 of them together. Now this code right here, all it does is it actually selects the array and copies that array into, selects this array to be that array, and this array is a variable that's used later to pick the blocks from. And then if it's 4, it actually takes the blocks from every array and puts them all together in a single array. Now other parameters are set here. You know, the first number I typed in the arguments to the city command, it was either a 0 or, none, or a 1. So this set parameters chooses which of those 2 array functions to call to set the parameters. Now these are the parameters. These are the defaults and these are the custom. You can change both of them. So you set the number of buildings. So for some reason I have 50 in both. You set which array you want to use. Now I could just come in here and just change this to a 4, and from then on custom array would use the all mixed up array. And I can choose whether or not I want to do a compass. I like to have the compass because then I can see which ways my buildings walk, so to speak. Then I can choose what I want the ground to be. I can be grass or it can be some other brick and so on. And then I can choose whether or not to use a random ground block, which is what I actually like to do because it always surprises me. And then I can actually choose to make a cube buildings. So all the buildings will be cubes. In that case, it uses only the height dimension of a building and sets all the other dimensions to that. Then here, I have a lower and upper limit for height, width, and depth. And you can set those to anything you like as long as they're positive numbers up to some limit. And then you can set the move range. This is so the program, it will move 0 to whatever you say distance with each run. Just for the heck of it, let's pick a really big one here. So we have the width and depth, 6 and 12. Let's try 20 here to see the effect. See what's happening? The buildings are very scattered out because on average, it's taking a bigger step between buildings as the buildings are wide or deep. See, that's the effect. Now, let's do just the opposite. Let's put 0. I think this one is really fun. It's kind of shocking, actually. Look at that. It's building that building. It's all in one place. So it never moves because the length of the range was 0. So I didn't want to do that. Okay. I think I have some examples of this in the blog, and some of these can really be quite beautiful, or at least I think they are. Okay, let's put this back to something reasonable. I've forgotten what I had it, so I'll just put it back to 10. It should really, I found that the most beautiful cities are built when it's between the lower and the upper limit of the width and the length. So this one is tighter So you could build, let's just try one that's where it doesn't move very far, but it is allowed to move. Let's try a 4. Okay, key. So here the buildings move to different locations, but they're really tight together. I think this one may be very interesting. Yeah, I like that. Interesting. Okay. See, you can play with this thing all day long, and I hope you will. Forgive me here. Now, what else will we want to play with? Okay, that's all for now. Now, after so you can you can vary the cities by setting your default and custom parameters. And you can set those to anything you want. Inside the verify parameters function, they are verified to be sure they're all kind of reasonable. Now, one interesting limit is because a fill command is used to create each building. You know, there's a limit on how big, how large a volume the fill command can do, and that's the limit right there. So I have multiplied together the upper bound of the height, width, and depth, and be sure it doesn't exceed that number. And if it does, it gives you a message, and it stops. And you probably noticed that each time it's outputting the actual building parameters that it's using. Now, some of these parameters, like the number of buildings, you set them in these functions, but then you can override them in the onChat command. And the number of buildings and which array is to be, excuse me, which array is to be used are the two parameters that can be overridden by the city command arguments. And of course, the first argument is used to choose between these two sets of parameters. Now, I keep these over here. I keep other sets of parameters that I like for some reason. This one's kind of fun. It actually just uses, I'm going to show you this one just because I can't resist. This lets you actually see the random walk very visibly, because at each step, the little building it builds is 1 by 1 by 1. So you see it's just building single block buildings, and watch them walk. So that looks a lot like a random walk, doesn't it? It's because it is a random walk. Okay, we get the idea. And I think I should put that back. And I have another one here I won't use, but it lets you test the limits of the fill command. So notice that the building height here is set to 109. And I think it's 110 or 111, I've forgotten which. It blows up, and the fill command is too big, so it gives you a message and stops. The other way to change this is you change out the arrays. And you can change out any of the arrays. The only thing about them is you have to keep the same names. So I'm changing now out the third array. That's 1, 2, 3. So let's look at a city now that with the third array. Okay. City, we'll use default. We'll use the default number of buildings, and we will use array 3. See, it's all blue. How easy was that? And of course, now if you do one with 4, you get the blues all mixed in with the other ones. Cool. Nice city. So let's just do that. City, 0, 0, and let's do a 4. Now we get a city that has the jewel colors, the black colors, and the blue colors. We don't have dynamite anymore. It's kind of nice. Ooh. I like these that are kind of bent around like this, because usually you can find a really good view of the city kind of like that. Okay. Ooh, I'd like to capture that, but I don't really have time. Okay, let's go look at the code a little bit more. So this left part of the code, the left third basically over to here, has to do with defining the input parameters, what the city is going to look like. Then this part of the code, here and here, these two columns, they have to do with actually building the city. The main routine is city, the check command city. And what it does is it checks all these input parameters, and it calls various things to get the input parameters, and then checks them, draws the compass. And notice the compass is launched as a check command, so it's drawn as the buildings are being drawn. You don't have to wait for the compass to be drawn. And then it does various other setups, and the guts of the thing is this. This is what's most important. The repeat loop runs in buildings. So that's the number of buildings. And for each building, it does one building, and then it calls the get new position. How easy is that? And then when it's finished, it finalizes everything, and it's done. Now, the get new position is kind of interesting. So what it does is, the way this is set up, it picks a random position from a rectangle that's basically the most negative. The two X and Z are the negative versions of the range, and up to the positive versions of the range. So that's the maximum, the rectangle that bounds the maximum range. Okay. Then the way you actually construct a building is pretty straightforward. We pick the building height, which is between a random number between the upper and lower bounds of height. We keep track of the maximum height of the building because that's used for that origin marker. And then if it's a cube building, we set the width and the depth to be the same as the height, and otherwise we set the width and the depth to also be random. And then we pick the block, and that's a random block from the array that we want, and I'll show you that in just a minute. Then we simply use this fill command. And notice it's hollow, so our buildings are all hollow, and we're just simply using the width, depth, and height that we had picked. And then we have a foundation block, which is set in the two parameter functions, which lets you put a foundation under the building of a color that you like. And then we have a function that keeps track of the minimum and maximum X and Z, and that's used in drawing the rectangle. To pick a block, all we have to do is pick a random number between 0 and the length of the this array. The this array, remember, was set to be one of the arrays or a combination of all the arrays. And then we set this block to be this array, and we get the value at R, the random number. And then what this little routine does is, if that block was TNT, and if we have not yet been given some TNT in the player's items, we give the player some TNT. Okay, that is that. Now, I guess the only other little thing that's kind of interesting is the do ground here. And at the very end of the program, we build some ground, when that's the rectangle. And we build an underblock out of what you specify, because if you're using glass block for the ground, you don't want to actually see the brown old dirt. You want to see something pretty. So like if I'm using glass, I might want a white or underblock. And then in some cases, you want to use a random block for the ground, or you may want to specify the ground. And in any case, you use a replace the grass block because you don't, this avoids, rather than just use a fill, you use this replace because you want to avoid replacing the foundations. And you give the player some flint if needed, because the ground might have been TNT. What do you think of that? I haven't shown you that. Now, this whole part of the function here, this has to just do with the view command. So this last third has only to do with the view command. And the view is interesting because to me, the most interesting part of this is how you calculate those positions. So it creates a position array. Now, I can't find any documentation in MakeCode for Minecraft about position arrays, but they work. So I create a position array that has every position I want to move to. And it's the 8 positions around the rectangle, plus it's 1 above the origin, and then it's 1 in the very center of the rectangle. Okay, and then once those positions are created, it simply moves around each one and pauses at that position. Then it moves up high at the same position, pauses again, so that you have a chance to see. Okay, that is the program. And I will say goodbye by just running one more. Oh, I love this one. I hate to wipe it out before oh well, okay. Let's do 1, and we're going to run 200 buildings, and we're going to use 4. This one, lots of buildings. Lots of buildings, and they're going south this time. I think, is this the first south that we've had? Now, it could come back this way. I mean, it just, it's random walk. Yeah, here it kind of comes back. Cool, I like that. Just working, building all those buildings. Now, I'm wondering if when you have a large number of buildings, there is a chance that the ground, then the rectangle under the ground might be so big that the fill command can't do it. In which case, nope, it did it this time. It will give you a message. Okay, let's get down here somewhere. We won't use view. I like to get the upper angle. No, I don't like that as much as I do. Kind of up here somewhere. I'll leave you with this. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy playing with Cityscape. Bye.